I'm recording this in November 2021. As we all know, the world went to shit in March 2020, and this is the first foreign holiday I've had since then. Not only that, it's also the first time that Mr. Disgruntled and I have been to Spain. So what follows is a Disgruntled Danny special on our week in Torremolinos. And we begin, before we fly, at Manchester Airport. I've stayed in worse places. So, Mrs. Disgruntled and I are in Torremolinos in southern Spain. It's our first time in this country, and we've avoided going here because I've met British people who go to Spain. We usually go to Italy because they can't afford to go there. Your standard Brits who go to Spain, they're the type of people who wear a football shirt to a restaurant. In fact, if you're abroad and see someone wearing an England football shirt and the England team aren't playing, that person is a fucking idiot. And on the flight in, I can understand why the Spanish see the Brits as drunken louts. In the seats behind us, there were three lads who were just swearing their heads off despite young children being on the plane, and in front of us was a woman playing on her iPad, one of those bubble smash games which are like Tetris for the retarded, and she was more interested in that than, I don't know if you can see behind me, the mountain range, the mountains of Malaga. Anyone who finds a video game more interesting than one of the most beautiful places on earth is fucking backward. We booked our holiday with EasyJet, who are a budget airline. If you're from outside probably Europe, the way to imagine EasyJet of old, it was one step up from asking where do you want to go and then being fired there with a catapult. But because the travel industry is on its arse so much, everyone's had to up their game because everyone's lowered prices. Now the planes are refurbished, the staff are more polite than ever. And when we got to Spain, since Britain left the EU, there's been many horror stories of Brits being stuck at customs for hours on end. But the truth of the matter is that from the plane touching down to going through customs and clearing COVID took 15 minutes. When I say clearing COVID, I mean getting through the COVID restrictions, not eradicating the disease. And then once again, we had the misfortune of interacting with some stereo British holidaymakers. Four women, well, I guess they were women. They look like they've been going to Spain that long that their skin resembles, well, fucked leather. We met our holiday rep and he said, could you wait here? And these four ladies said, no, we're going outside for a fag. Which, if you're from the UK, means a cigarette, nothing else. And 5 minutes later, when our rep took Mrs. Disgruntled and I outside, these women had not only filled up an ashtray with cigarette butts, but had also gone through 2 bottles of wine. Who the fuck does that? And then on the bus, I overheard one of them say, I can't wait to get fucked by a Spanish waiter. Any man who's having sex with her deserves to be on danger money. If I had to do it, I'd be wearing fucking caving equipment. With this being a Mediterranean holiday, and with me being a heterosexual man, naturally I've been looking forward to seeing some tits. Now I'm not demanding that any woman goes topless for my gratification or for that of any other man. But if they're going to do it, I'm going to have a look. But much to my disappointment, as much as there are many, many attractive young German women racing themselves around the pool, thus far the only woman to get her norks out is a British woman, and all power to her for being so confident. But in the UK we've got a term that says mutton dressed as lamb, and that means to take the meat of a sheep and disguise it to look like the much more tender meat of a lamb. This woman isn't so much mutton dressed as lamb, more like a sheep that was hit by an HGV into a ditch where it's decomposed for the last 3 months, dressed as lamb. Yeah, and well done to her. But I'm happy to say I can't look at her tits and look her in the eyes because they're about 4 feet apart. Don't get me wrong, I've stayed worse places. That one really needs to be in German. So I've been complaining, but let's talk about some of the good things. Well, we're here in the off season, but it's still between 20 and 25 degrees every day, which for Brits like me is perfect shorts and t-shirt weather. You can tell the locals because the Spaniards are walking around dressed like they're about to try and conquer the North Pole. And because it's the off season, it means it's quiet, and that's fucking fantastic. During summer, the Costa del Sol will be packed full of morbidly obese Manx and Brummies waddling along in their flip-flops. If you're from outside the UK, Manx and Brummies means people from Manchester and Birmingham. There'll also be a smattering of gobby scousers moaning loudly that they don't like the food and the water tastes funny. And although many of the shops are closed, being the off-season means the place isn't rammed full of illegal immigrants whose one purpose is to try and sell me some useless shit. And according to TripAdvisor, the #1 destination in all of Torremolinos is this beach, right here. And there's just me on it. It's fantastic. I'm a British guy on holiday, and I'm not having to do the one thing I despise the most: interact with other fucking British people. I'm on a bridge among the palm trees, and I don't have to listen to some fat bitch from Rotherham telling me about how well Archie, her 6-year-old son, is doing. Here's my #1 travel tip. If, like me, you're a middle-aged married man, and whilst your wife's having a sleep in the hotel room, you've gone for a walk along the beach. And it's this: wear mirrored sunglasses, because that way you can pretend to be looking over this way whilst you're actually perving on the two French girls holding each other up on the beach. Just going to use my card to unlock the gate. That didn't work. Just going to use my card to unlock the gate. There, that lets me in and keeps the locals out, lest they think they're worthy of me. What I was trying to say was, I'm going to use my card to unlock the gate, lest the locals think they're worthy of mixing with the foreigners. It's not even that fucking funny. You know when you go on holiday and you see those wankers wearing a shirt from somewhere else they've been? Anyway, it's the start of another day in Torremolinos. I'd always thought that the Spanish were quite miserable people, but I now realise that's because I've only ever seen them before when they're in the UK. And imagine growing up in a place like this, thinking I want to see the world, I'll get into tourism, and ending up working a permanent night shift at a travel lodge in Wigan. That's going to piss you off. One thing I can confirm is the almost legendary Spanish work ethic, or lack thereof. If you want anything doing before about 10:30, the attitude generally is do it your fucking self, but in Spanish. Another notable difference between a typical British beach and this one in the Costa del Sol is that here there's a notable lack of beer cans, hypodermic needles, used condoms and dog shit. Another notable thing is that Spanish women in their mid to late 30s are incredibly flirty. The same thing applies to Italian women. And I believe that's because most of them know they're on a countdown. Because women from this part of the world either look stunning their entire lives, or for the majority of them, they hit 40 and it's game over. So even a fat, bald, ugly bastard like me is getting plenty of smiles and waves. I've just come off the beach. There's a guy who's passed out drunk, has clearly been there all night, and he's wearing a Newcastle United shirt. The problem with Spain is the fucking British tourists. One of the things I really... Fuck me, that's cold! So it's blowing a gale down by the seafront, so I'm heading into the town of Torremolinos, specifically the gay part of Torremolinos, and I'm intrigued because on the guide map there's rainbow markings and it doesn't say LGBTQ friendly or this is the gay village. It says here gays are tolerated, and much like every other gay village I've ever visited, it's very open and it's very friendly. However, subtle it is not. Now I'm going to try and find my way back down to the seafront, and the storm's come in. This is proper wrath of God stuff. You can see behind me this big white wall. Well, just up the end of it there's an entrance and I saw all these wonderful floral displays. And I was about to walk in and then I realised it's the fucking cemetery. On the way up to the area where gays are tolerated, you can see on the steps here someone has written Ennis love. I think that's meant to read penis love, but they ran out of steps. That's my morning walk over. Now to spend the day by the swimming pool, surrounded by 50-something British white women who spent so much time tanning, they're one step away from being done for racism. Another good thing about coming to Spain in the off-season is that even though it's blowing a gale today, and no one in their right mind would go swimming in any of the outdoor pools, very few of the guests even seem to be aware of the indoor pools. It's got a capacity to take 45 people, but when I was swimming, including me, there were 2. In fact, in the whole room, there were 3. Myself, a young Korean woman who was swimming, and a morbidly obese white guy about 30 years her senior, who I'm going to go out on a limb and guess is her husband. I'm also going to guess that when she arrived in his country, she came with a 12-month warranty and a receipt. Yesterday, Mrs. Disgruntled and I went into the centre of Torremolinos for her to do some shopping. And we went into a jeweller's and she picked out some earrings she liked, and the jeweller, he wasn't Spanish, he was Arabic. And he showed them to her and then said, "Do you need to ask the boss?" and gestured towards me. At which point I turned away thinking that man has just signed his own death warrant. Because if you know Mrs. Disgruntled personally, you know she's a short, fiery Irish woman. And that jeweller's body will probably wash up in the next week or so on the coast of Morocco. As you can still hear, the storm that arrived yesterday is now going at it full pelt. So I'm making my way along the seafront, and I'm literally being fucking sandblasted. Shitting hell. So what I'm going to do is head past the loose sand up towards the sea and have a wander along the seafront. Oh, it's 9:15 in the morning and I'm having a nice relaxing walk along the beach. But does this mean I regret coming to Spain in the winter? No, not at all. It's still 18 degrees and it's fucking magnificent. So here on the beach, I found a solitary child shoe. My guess is the wind has fetched them up and dashed them to death at one of the hotels. We're at the time of the morning now where some of the restaurants are getting ready to open. And I've just passed one and I'm guessing it's the owner. She's desperately trying to sweep the sand off the path. You have to admire her optimism. I found somewhere to take refuge from the wind for a moment or two. And a thought has occurred to me. Whenever you watch travel programmes, presenter is always in idyllic conditions, never in the middle of a gale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a very brief travel report on the sculpture in front of me, which is based on a painting by Pablo Picasso. The difference is, I'm not going to do it in idyllic conditions. I'm going to walk about 10 yards to my left, where I'll be bearing the full brunt of the wind, whilst also being shot blasted. Here we go. So as you can see behind me, on that roundabout is a large sculpture based on a painting by Pablo Picasso. I don't know what the painting is, because everything Picasso ever did looked like it had been done by a 3-year-old with severe learning disabilities. And right now, I'm having the top layer of my skin blasted off my fucking body. I've just been to the swimming pool, where I've overheard an elderly couple from London saying they're going to complain to the manager because it's windy. Now there's 3 points here. Firstly, they booked a holiday in November. What the fuck did they expect? Secondly, although it's very blowy, it's still a shit sight warmer than it is back in Blighty. And thirdly, by complaining to the manager, they're implying that she can control the weather. Now the manager at this hotel is a charming Spanish woman called Olivia. I wasn't aware she was also God. So I'm now going out to get some lunch to bring back to the hotel room, and also some new sunglasses, because this storm outside, when I was filming earlier, is so violent the sand has actually scratched the lenses on my old aviators. So I don't know if you can see, but the wind's still raging outside. I'm just going to show you how hard it is to open this door, which has got a panic bar on it. Ready? Fuck! That's all my weight! And it's closed again. Fucking hell. But I'll say again, although it's windy, it isn't cold, it isn't unpleasant. In fact, truth be known, I'm fucking loving this. And there are very few things make me proud to be British, as you will have gathered from this video. But there's a family of 4 from the UK who are up on the sun deck. Now the sun is nowhere to be seen, and the wind is gusting up to 80 miles an hour, and they are desperately laying on their towels attempting to fucking sunbathe. 21 Celsius. So I've been talking about what Spain is like, but what about the hotel? Well, this is where we're staying. Like me, it's from the 1970s, and like me, it's a bit run down and needs a bit of work. But it's clean, the staff are polite, and given that this whole area relies on tourism, and COVID has shut it down for over 1.5 years, it's remarkable it's in such good nick. And add to that at the restaurant every evening, there's a choice of between 140 and 160 different dishes. I was hoping to lose weight on holiday. Not a fucking chance. Of course, one of the downsides about visiting, well, not only Spain, but any non-English speaking country, is the TV in the hotel room. The experience of scrolling through hundreds of channels, desperate to find one that's in English. And when you find it, they're always showing the same thing. Some god-awful American police drama that I've managed to avoid for over a decade. The one exception was in Florence in Italy, because that introduced me to one of my favourite shows, Rizzoli and Isles. Or more accurately, it introduced me to the actress Angie Harmon, who could sit on my face and wriggle. Mrs. Disgruntled, how would you sum up our holiday in Spain?
Great.
You heard it here first. I've just been for what I expect will be my last swim on this holiday in the indoor pool, not that one because fuck that one's freezing when the sun's out. Anyway, a story from breakfast. A guy walked into the restaurant. From his accent, I'd say he was from Yorkshire, and from the way he was slurring, I'd say he was also drunk, which is understandable because it was 9 AM. And he was on his phone, broadcasting to Facebook Live, saying, look at all this, look at this fucking muck, where's the fucking British food? Whilst the staff were behind him, pleading with him to put a mask on. And that's understandable, because this whole area is dependent on tourism. They have one COVID outbreak and it's thousands of people losing their jobs. Once again, it's one British person ruining the reputation of all of us. What a fucking wanker. So at the start of this video, I said that the wife and I usually go to Italy. But after spending some time in the Costa del Sol, well, I have to say Italy still wins it for me, hands down. It's more cultured, it's more refined, and you're less likely to be vomited on by someone in a Manchester United shirt or watch four lads from Derby throwing deck chairs at the Germans. But when it comes to value for money, that's a different thing altogether. And that's because the cost of our holiday in Torremolinos, so that's flights, transfers, insurance, accommodation and food, literally the only thing we've had to buy is drinks, is around the same as renting a static caravan in North Wales. Now there's nothing wrong with renting a static in North Wales, staying at a village called, I don't know, something like everywhere else in Wales it's called, where the locals will openly hate you just because you're English. Or you could spend your time looking at that. It's a fucking no-brainer. So there you have it. It transpires that during my time in Spain, the problem isn't that you can't drink the water or get the right food, or that it's too hot or too cold, or the language barrier or whatever. The biggest issue is the other fucking British tourists. I'm going to finish this video in the style of Terminator 2, but as ever, thanks for watching.